Hey church, Bryan here. Today we're going to dive into James chapter 4 verses 11 and 12, where James has some words for us when it comes to judging others. This is the weekly word. Let's dive in. Last week we unpacked some symptoms that are hindrances to our spiritual lives. The solution James gave us was God's grace being a covering, and the takeaway application was repenting and humbling ourselves before the Lord. By humbly drawing near to Him, God draws near to us. All of that was personal, or what I like to call vertical. It takes place between our own person and God. This week, we'll focus on interpersonal or horizontal relationships between ourselves and other believers. Let's pick up in verse 11. Brothers and sisters, do not slander one another. Anyone who speaks against a brother or sister or judges them speaks against the law and judges it. When you judge the law, you are not keeping it, but sitting in judgment on it. So James has just said to humble yourself in verse 10, and now do not slander or speak evil about others. What does slander mean, and what is it meant to do? Slander is defined as false information that is meant to damage a person's reputation. It is meant to dehumanize them. It is meant to get people to look at that person's actions in a negative light that would assign that person's value to those actions. Well, what can it look like practically? I'd say example number one would be embellishing details to make that person appear worse, or assuming and assigning a negative or evil intent behind that person's actions. But it could also be telling more people than necessary what a person has done. James says don't do this because if you do, you are assuming the role of judge over the situation, and that spot has been reserved for God Himself. He says we need more doers of the law, not more judges. So now that we know what not to do, what should we then do when it comes to correcting others when that situation occurs? That has a lot to do with the posture of our heart. Don't forget that we must humble ourselves. Notice that he doesn't say don't hold other people accountable or do not lovingly correct one another. James has been doing that the whole time we've been studying the book of James. What he does say aligns perfectly with what Jesus says in Matthew 7 about not judging others, lest we also be judged. It also aligns with what Paul writes in Galatians 6 when he writes, brothers and sisters, if someone is caught in sin, you who live by the Spirit should restore that person gently. But watch yourselves, or you also may be tempted. Tempted to do what? Judge others. We'll end today in verse 12 of James chapter 4. It says, there is only one lawgiver and judge, the one who is able to save and destroy, but you, who are you to judge your neighbor? Church, I wish this was an easy one-time fix, but the truth is we must all be on alert to not fall into judging our brothers and sisters. This is the question we must answer for ourselves today. Am I living in a humble way that I would even be able to lovingly correct or encourage others? Or am I succumbing to the temptation of passing judgment over them? This has been the Weekly Word. Thanks so much for joining us. We'd love to hear from you. Please leave us a comment on this video, send us a DM, or fill out a comment card on our website. The link is in the video description. As always, we can't wait to see you this Sunday at 9:45. God bless you.